Hello, I'm Dave Peach, and this is the Crawfordsville Peach Cast, sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. See them in person or at tricountybank.net. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. Crawfordsville Peach Cast, a special edition today. We are joined by Dave Meyer. Dave, how are you?
Fantastic, Dave. Glad to be alongside again.
You are calling in from Rye, New York.
Rye, New York. I am this way for some business tomorrow, so just on the edge of Connecticut, Dave.
We appreciate that. We are presented by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892, and we're also sponsored by Central Indiana Rubber, and we say 1, 2, 3, hello.
Hello,
Todd. Todd has listened to more Crawfordsville Peach Casts than any person on the planet, and we certainly appreciate that and his sponsorship. And without further ado, we bring in the Professor, Nick Elam. Professor, how are you?
I am doing great, and it's great to be with you.
Wow. Now, we're going to talk about the Elam Ending. You have your own ending, and this is a fantastic story. And we read in your notes that you are a motivational speaker, a keynote speaker. So kind of give us maybe your opening, how you reach out to folks that have no idea what the Elam Ending is all about.
Well, the great thing is that now that the Elam Ending has been put into place, now I don't have to speak just on behalf of the concept myself. Now I can let the concept speak for itself. So a lot of times, some eye-catching quotes from people or some highlight reels of Elam Ending games gets people's attention, and then just getting into the backstory a little bit about how this was, such a long journey from first devising this idea and then finally seeing it come to life, and how following this pursuit really just fueled only by vision, belief, hope, and then but keeping with it and keep staying persistent until it finally came to pass. And I think that message does translate to a lot of different audiences, whether they're interested in sports or not.
Now, you are an assistant professor of educational leadership, preparing principals at Ball State University. You've been there since 2017. And so how did this come about? I know that, obviously you have a career independent of the Elam Ending. The Elam Ending, I know, started when you were a student at Dayton. That's a great story. Why don't you share that with us?
Yeah. So like you said, my full-time career has been in education. I started out as a high school math teacher, and then became a high school assistant principal and an athletic director, then an intermediate school principal, and now preparing future school principals and school superintendents. But along the way, I've had different part-time pursuits in sports. And that includes this independent project, which has now become the Elam Ending. And so, I'm a lifelong sports fan and basketball fan. And so this idea first kind of explored in 2004, and then actually molded into a viable idea for the first time in 2007. What I didn't know at the time was that once I did all the work to convince myself that this concept had merit, what I didn't know at the time is that it would be 10 more years of convincing others in the basketball world that the idea had merit. That was really the tough part of the journey. But again, it was always something that I would do in my free time. It was never anything that my livelihood necessarily depended on. And so I was I've always been able to draw fulfillment from having those dual paths. If I'm having a bad day, if it seems like I'm running into a dead end on this basketball project, I could always look at my career in education and draw fulfillment from that. If I had a bad day as a teacher or principal or professor, then I could look at this basketball project and kind of draw inspiration from that. So it's it's been good to kind of diversify my sources of happiness, I guess you could say.
Well, before we go to break, explain to us the Elam Ending.
The Elam Ending in a nutshell is that you play most of a basketball game with a clock, and you play the last part of the game without a clock. Now, Now, that begs two questions right off the bat, which is, well, when do you shut off the clock, and then what do you play to? Um, and also, why this is needed. So the idea of the Elam Ending is not to change basketball; it's actually to do the opposite and try to preserve a more natural and familiar style of play through the end of every game by getting rid of different warping strategies that we so often see under a time format. So there are different versions, and they're meant to be different versions based on the league and the level and the style of play. But what we'll see here later in July in Indianapolis at TBT, the basketball tournament, they use a version where they shut off the clock at the 4-minute mark of the fourth quarter, and they add 8 points to the leading team score to set the target score, and they play the rest of the game without a clock. So let's say, for example, the score is 65-60 when we get to the 4-minute mark of the fourth quarter. Okay, we're going to get rid of the clock, and we're going to play first team to 73 wins the game. And what you see is that if you are leading, then you can't settle into a passive style of play. You have to keep playing assertively to reach that target score. If you're behind and you're on defense, you don't have to foul desperately and hand away free points to your opponent. You can continue to rely on defensive stops. If you're behind and you're on offense, you don't have to rush and force up these ugly shots. You can continue to work and get your best look. And that whole combination of factors makes the outcome of the game less predictable. It makes late comebacks more likely. And every game ends on the swish of a net. So you get these great game-ending moments.
We will talk more with Professor Nick Elam and the Elam Ending right after this on the Crawfordsville Peach Cast.
Are you looking for great prices? Do you have a smartphone? Of course you do. This is Bria French. With Tri-County Bank's Merchant Discount Network, you can get discounts on food, entertainment, tools, and so much more. All you need is a smartphone and your TCB Smart Rewards checking account. Cost savings are only a click away. Terms and conditions may apply. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Crawfordsville Peach Cast, our very special guest, Nick Elam of the Elam Ending. It will be featured in the TBT coming up at Hinkle Fieldhouse and 7 other venues starting on Friday, July 19th as we tape this. And it's also been a part of the NBA All-Star Game. We'll get into that. And Dave Meyer in Rye, New York, a question for the professor.
No, this is, Professor, it's amazing just to hear how long it has taken you. And it's obviously, as you say, it's evolved and you have different versions for different skill levels. Have you been surprised as how it has evolved? And what have been, as you have talked to people about this, obviously there has been uptake now with it being used in different places, but what surprised you about the reception you've got or how it has evolved along this time?
A great question. So I'm not surprised necessarily that it has changed. I knew that the initial version of the Elam Ending wasn't necessarily going to be the final version. So there have been some different tweaks along the way. But I think one thing that has surprised me, maybe pleasantly, and I mean, this is something that I hope for, but it was just, it's just been, you can't compare seeing it on paper and in your mind's eye compared to actually experiencing it, is just how when the clock, and you'll see this at TBT games here coming up, when the clock is shut off and you're in a close game and you're 8 points away from the target score, as soon as that clock goes off, there is just a different energy in the whole arena. A lot of times what happens in a close game at TBT is once that clock is shut off, everybody gets on their feet and they stay on their feet for that entire untimed final stretch. And it is palpable how the intensity on the court just ramps up, particularly the defensive intensity. You see the defenses clamp down in ways that they haven't up to that point. I mean, you really get that desperation feel, knowing that the finish line is imminent. And it's one thing that'll interest you is that the PA announcer can even have an impact on the in the arena. Yeah, truly. And it doesn't require anything gimmicky necessarily, but truly just by in a very straightforward way saying, Team X is 5 points from the target score. Team X is 3 points from the target score. Like that adds so much excitement, and people eat that up. And because if you don't say that, sometimes the end of the game can kind of sneak up on people a little bit. And there is also a limit to that too. I mean, sometimes you'll have a lopsided game, and it doesn't work quite as well if you say, well, team Y is 25 points away from the target score now. But if you've got both teams are within say 10 points of that target score, and each time they put the ball through the hoop, you just remind the crowd of how close they're getting to the target score. Like that just ramps up the intensity so much.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm doing prep work and a podcast at the same time. Now, I assume we'll still have a shot clock when we go to the Elam Ending.
Yeah, shot clock will still be in play, yes.
And is there any way, and this is purely a selfish question, does it cut down on the replays?
It does, absolutely. You'll still see some, but obviously, any clock related replays, you won't see that anymore. And there's, as you know, as anybody who's a big basketball follower knows, that there's a fair number of those under the time format. So you won't have any of those tedious replays trying to figure out, a tenth of a second here or there. And where that really comes into play is on, game-winning baskets. Under a time format, yes, it's awesome when a game ends on a winning basket, but it only happens about 1% of the time that all the circumstances align just right for that to happen. And even when it does happen, so often the celebration is spoiled because you have to go to the monitor and see if the shot was released on time. Well, with the Elam Ending, you take out that guesswork, and if you put the ball through the hoop to win the game, you can go crazy, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be a 1 or 2 or 3 point game. Sometimes you see that same level of excitement in a 4, 5, 6 point game, and so on, up to a certain extent.
And you can also have that when the game-winning shot goes in, they go back and see if there's 0.4 seconds on the clock that they can put back on there. And I understand you got to get it right. You want to get it right, but on the other hand, it does cut the excitement level. Now, let's talk about the NBA All-Star Game. And I was watching a podcast that you did. There's a fantastic story in the 2020 NBA All-Star Game. So kind of take us there to the point that the NBA is still using it in the All-Star Game.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, as the calendar turned to 2020, at that point, it was almost been 13 years of reaching out to the NBA, promoting this idea. And most of that was one-way communication. And again, I think it really, when things really started to turn the corner was back in 2017, when TBT became the first to adopt this format. And again, it wasn't just me speaking on behalf of this concept. People could see and feel and experience what this concept was all about. They could see how it worked and the spirit of it. And so, yeah, it's amazing to think that, for 10 years, it took 10 years to see it implemented for the first time at all, from 2007 to 2017. And then just 2.5 years after that, seeing literally the best players in the world all on one court playing at the NBA All-Star Game under this format. So, when I got the call in January of 2020, that's a call I'll never forget, when NBA league executives from the NBA league office called me, and they thanked me for my innovative ideas and my passion for the game. They were very candid on the call and saying that, in acknowledging the flaws of a timed format and how the game becomes very warped. They said that in their discussions with the Players Association, the players saw a lot of merit in an untimed finish. And then that's when they told me they were going to send me and a guest, all expenses paid, to the All-Star Game in Chicago in 2020 to see this in action. So that was really, really one of the big thrills of this whole journey.
Wow, and it's really created fantastic opportunities for you.
Yeah, like I said, so because it has been a story of persistence, really. I mean, if I had to put one word to it, persistence. And again, I think that translates to audiences beyond the scope of sports. And so having opportunities to speak in school settings, particularly, and deliver different keynote speeches at universities has been really exciting, and different conferences has been, and being able to share that story, and how again, how others might be able to have takeaways from my story and help put it toward the dreams that they might have.
And Dave, you can ask the next question, but I did want to get this one in. You, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. You felt that you were one email away from breaking through.
That's exactly right. That is almost word for word the way I put it. Sometimes when I think about this, or when people ask me why I stuck with it for 10 years, because again, when I started out, I there was no way I thought it would be 10 years. And if I'd known that, I don't know if I would have stuck with it, but I truly did always feel like I was just making the right contact, making the right argument, just that one day away from the big breakthrough. And so it was 10 years worth of tomorrows before that tomorrow finally came. And I'm glad I stuck with it.
Wow. Well, this is a great story. And it seems like we're still, even though you've been at it for a long time, I fully anticipate this, continuing to, be adopted in places. And in much way, all the major sports right now are looking at things. Baseball, obviously, with a clock, has changed the game and reinvigorated some energy. Football, college, and pro are constantly looking at the kicking game and how the games end, and overtime versus sudden death. Have you looked to try to apply this concept elsewhere?
Well, one thing, to go back to one of the things you had said was, I think it's really exciting to see this continued forward momentum. And sometimes it seems like slow momentum, but I just have to remind myself to be patient with it. But just even this summer, for the first time, the NBA Summer League is implementing a version of the Elam Ending in their overtime. So the NBA G League for 2 seasons now has gotten rid of the clock just when a game gets to overtime. They play 1st to 7 at that point. And now the NBA Summer League is doing that. And so it's just continuing that tiptoeing forward is really exciting to see. Talking about other sports, I mean, I'm a follower of many other sports. I'd say, and it's always fun to play armchair commissioner. And I think you'd be surprised that I love to explore and think about the consequences of different rule changes. But most of the rule changes I hear about or even see, I'm not always a fan of. But if you're talking specifically about the concept of playing a sport most of the time with a clock and the last part without a clock, it's really only something that I think works well in basketball. And the reason for that is if you think about it, any other time sport like ice hockey, field hockey, soccer, football, you can go way down the line with water polo and lacrosse and all these different time sports. All the scoring in those sports happens so sporadically that it's hard to get rid of the clock and just use scoring in place of the clock. The difference, what sets basketball apart from these other timed sports, is that scoring happens much more consistently and reliably. You can realistically use points in place of a clock for basketball, whereas you can't really do that in other timed sports.
Sure.
What would you think of the Elam Ending for high school basketball?
I think it would be great, particularly in states that do not have a shot clock. I know many states do have a shot clock, other states don't. And it can be a hardship on a lot of schools to do that, particularly smaller schools where not only do you have to install the technology for it, but now you have to train and pay an individual and recruit an individual to operate that shot clock at every game. And that's hard to do sometimes. Whereas if you were to implement the Elam Ending, you can kind of get the same effect without all the trouble. You can do it tomorrow and get the same effect of eliminating that stalling strategy and fouling strategy without the expense necessarily. So I think it would be great. the one part that would be a little bit tricky, and this is by no means a deal breaker, but um, for TBT, like we land on +8 for a good target score. There's a Canadian league that uses a +9 because that kind of matches their scoring rate a little bit more. Um, for high school, there's a lot more variance in scoring, so it might be a little bit harder to land on that perfect number. But it would be one of those things you could fine tune over time, and I think I think it'd be a great fit for high school.
I was thinking that too, the shot clock, and asking a question. Everything as far as sports now, kind of revolves around television, media, sponsors, and all of that. What's the initial reaction? Or I guess we've been at this since 2017 in the TBT. What is television? What's their reaction to this?
Yeah, so I think we're really just scratching the surface on the possibilities that can go along with the Elam Ending. I think there are a lot of exciting opportunities that haven't even been implemented yet. I think there's so many possibilities of promotional tie-ins to that game-winning basket for people who are in the arena, for people watching at home who might have, again, I think there's more interest in, you kind of want to stick around and see who's going to make that final shot, what it's going to look like, sound like. So it keeps people watching to the end a little bit more, which again, that's good for TV, good for sponsors. So I think there's so many residual effects and positive residual effects from implementing the Elam Ending that, we haven't necessarily scratched the surface on that.
What's next? I mean, you've got this big tournament this summer, but what is the next things that are coming for people that are looking to the Elam Ending or just hearing about it? And obviously, we've got a great opportunity in Indianapolis this summer. Are there other games or tournaments coming up?
Yeah, so already 2024 has been an exciting year for the growth of this concept. I mentioned the NBA Summer League is implementing it for the first time in overtime. Also, earlier this year, the Women's College All-Star Game in Cleveland implemented this in regulation. So, again, it continues that forward momentum. So, I think seeing it grow at the grassroots level. I think you mentioned high school. I think finding settings for that at a high school level, even if it's just say a holiday tournament or something like that, I think is an exciting possibility. And then thinking about the NBA, again, they're implementing it at the G League. They do that, they don't do that just for fun. They do that because they use that as a testing ground for possible rule changes. So if they've stuck with it for 2 years and now they've taken the same concept and now are putting in for the first time at Summer League, I think it's very, very possible we could see in at least in overtime, I think we could see it implemented in some shape or form at the NBA level, possibly even if that's just an in-season tournament that they've recently introduced. So I can't speak for the league necessarily, but I just think there's so many exciting opportunities from that. And I think from a player's perspective, I don't think they necessarily want to be playing double and triple overtime. So I think knowing that a game's going to be settled in the first and only overtime, I think is exciting for them. And I think from the league standpoint, knowing that you're going to get that game-ending highlight for any game that goes to overtime, I think is an exciting prospect.
And I know that you talk about strategy and the different strategies, and there are some things that coaches will try in the Elam Ending. One of them, and I know you addressed this, is like let's say you're the team is 3 points away, and you're 1 or 2 points away. It would probably benefit you to foul them to make sure that they don't get a chance to win the game from 3. And there's actually a rule in the Elam Ending that takes care of that.
Yeah, so you'll see that at TBT where once you get to that untimed portion, if you have a foul on the floor, it's actually one shot in the ball. So if you think about how that would apply to that situation you just mentioned, it really has eliminated that strategy because you wouldn't want to commit that foul on the floor, and you wouldn't want to give them that free throw and possession. And so now when we get into that situation, and it happens a fair amount of time, now we get the situation playing out much more fluidly, and the team on offense, the overwhelming majority of the time, does attempt a three. And so, you get that hold your breath moment when the ball is in the air, waiting to see if that's going to be the game winner. And so, and when it does go through the net, the amazing thing, and I know people are skeptical about this, but this has been just one of the most exciting and reassuring things about this. When the ball does go through the net, you still get the same look and sound and feel of a buzzer beater, and with the team rushing out from the bench and tackling each other on the court, and we're able to keep and enhance all the things that we like about late game play and eliminate and alleviate the things that we don't like.
Professor, a little bit about that. Do you mind us calling you Professor?
I have no problem with you calling.
I love that.
That's too nice. That's too generous.
Hey, I love that.
I mean,
the Professor.
It's accurate, but it's probably nicer than you have to be.
That's right. Now, let's talk about this lineup at Butler Hinkle Fieldhouse. Now, I know you went to Dayton. You're a professor at Ball State, but it's got to be kind of cool for you to see this at Hinkle Fieldhouse. So we played a few games there in the past, and to see this Butler, IU, Purdue, Valparaiso, other teams as well participating in this one. This is really it's going to be a little Hoosier hysteria I guess I should say Bulldog hysteria, since I'm working Butler in July.
I am over the moon excited for this. I know Hinkle and just the state of Indiana in general has been on TBT's wish list for years now, and finally it's going to happen. And even though I'm an Ohio native, I grew up as a IU fan. My mom is an IU grad, and so I was raised on Bob Knight and the Hoosiers, even growing up in Ohio. So it's going to be great to see them have an alumni team in the tournament for the first time. Butler just has an amazing following, and Hinkle is going to be an amazing setting for this. It is going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait.
Again, that's coming up as we tape this on Friday, July 19th, 4 big games. And the Assembly Ball team is number 1 as far as the seeding. All Good Dogs, number 2, the Butler team. Mid-of-Mackey are the 4 seed, and we've got Fort Wayne, we've got Valparaiso, and a team from Arkansas as well. And then we'll have the semifinals on Sunday the 21st. Championship game of the Hinkle TBT regional will be on Tuesday the 23rd. And, Professor, where will the quarterfinals be, July 29th and 30th?
Quarterfinals depend in part. The TBT is using a different format this year where they have not set the quarterfinal sites just yet. They're actually going to base that on the early round ticket sales from the different sites. But so that is still to be finalized for sure. And then once we get past the quarterfinals, then once we get into the semifinals and finals, that'll be in Philadelphia this year.
And Professor, I assume you're going to be at some games at Hinkle Fieldhouse.
Absolutely. I'm going to be at several of them, possibly everyone that's hosted there.
Wow. Well, we look forward to it. Anything else we need to know about the Elam Ending?
Not that I can think of. Just come on out to Hinkle Fieldhouse or tune in on Fox and their family of networks, and you're going to see some great basketball. And again, you might be skeptical at first, and that there's no problem with that. But you're going to love the quality and the intensity of play that you're going to see during that final stretch once the clock goes off.
Okay, and I'm sorry, one more question. We have to check the internet, okay? They said you were a Reds groundskeeper. Is that true?
That is true. I'm actually in my 19th year on the Cincinnati Reds grounds crew.
You're still there?
Well, I am now on a much limited basis ever since I moved to Indiana. When I started out there, fresh out of, I was a mid-20s and a teacher at the time when I started there. I was working 70 home games a year, And then when I moved into being a principal, I had to back that down a little bit. And then now when I moved to Indiana, I backed it way down. But yeah, I get down there now and then. I've already worked a game in July. I had to pull the tarp, but yeah, one of these years I'll be working a World Series game. But I was hoping it would have happened by now.
Wow, David. I mean, professor.
Wow, I was going to say that was
sports designer, ending designer. I don't know how you, Reds groundskeeper. This is quite a bingo card for the professor.
Exactly. Do your cohorts on the grounds crew know of your not just the fact you're a professor of Ball State, but the fact you've come up with the Elam Ending?
Oh yeah, we talk about it a fair amount, and yeah, we talk about that, and enjoy some good Reds baseball. And yeah, those are some of my good longtime friends are down there on the grounds crew.
Wow. Well, Professor, we will see you at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Maybe we'll see you at Great American Ballpark sometime. And again, best for the Elam Ending, and I look forward to seeing you at Hinkle.
That sounds great. Thank you.
That is Professor Nick Elam, the creator of the Elam Ending on the Crawfordsville Peach Cast. Dave and I back to wrap it up right after this. Central Indiana Rubber Products provides the power for you. Central Indiana Rubber Products, or CIR, keeps farm equipment and local manufacturing processes running with gaskets, belts, seals, and O-rings, among a variety of other products and services. Employee-owned and always customer-focused. Central Indiana Rubber Products, 989 West, 83 North, Crawfordsville, and at indianarubber.com. Central Indiana Rubber Products, or CIR, power for you. Crawfordsville Peach Cast, Dave Peach, Dave Meyer, and how about the Professor Nick Elam?
Nick Elam, quite an impressive guy, and definitely a huge sports fan. Besides, the Elam Ending in basketball, the fact that he's still a somewhat active member of the Cincinnati Reds grounds crew, Dave. That's some extraordinary stuff.
I love that. And it makes me think, I don't know why, but it just takes me back to 1975 with Marty Brenneman and I don't know, I just go into a game and watch the groundskeepers and all that. I don't know why it takes me back, but now it's all natural grass, and it's a beautiful ballpark with a lot of amenities and all of that. But that lawn is where it all starts.
And he's not a guy of our age, Dave. He was born in the 80s, so he has been quite proficient as an educator and as a thinker, I guess, when it comes to sports. And I guess his full-time job is helping develop principals for schools in the state of Indiana. So does a lot of good when he's not watching sports.
We'll have to talk to him a little bit about maybe his recollection of the 90s as far as television and all that. I know we're kind of looking at the 90s, some of the shows there. But real quick, I wanted to salute Butler University, because I started attending Butler in 1979, and pretty much, say for about 5 years, I've never left.
It's been a good home court for you, Dave. Pretty much from Ross Hall to Hinkle Fieldhouse, with a little bit of Jordan and Robertson in the outdoor court, and the grass that used to be there when we attended. Butler's been very, very good to you, and you've been good for Butler.
Oh, and when you think about everything that Butler has done for me, and in an interview, they asked Tony Hinkle, what do you think about what you've done for Butler? And then Tony said, well, I think more about what Butler has done for me. Tony Hinkle.
Yeah. Yep. That's the Butler way. That is the Butler way, is show up and do your part and, when possible. We win, Dave, and we win with grace.
A few things that have happened to me along the way, Dave, as far as Butler University and what Butler University has done for me. I'm going to hit some of the highlights. The first one is Butler allowed me to meet Dick Enberg.
1980s Dick Enberg, Dave, is at the height, and it called it all. Baseball, basketball, football. He was always pleasant, never above the play. Dick Enberg. And go back, Dave, an IU graduate many moons ago.
I think secondary. I think he went to Central Michigan, but it is I don't. He probably got a doctor, whatever. His master's or his doctor was from IU.
Something from IU.
And I remember, my man in Columbus, Sam Simmermaker, 90 years old, still calling games. He retired this year. He talked about competing against Dick Enberg to do games at IU in the back in the day. But anyway, I had a chance to meet Dick Enberg. A lot of NCAA tournament PA gigs. We've seen Ray Allen, Dwayne Wade, of course, Pete Carrill at Princeton, that memorable shot. First NCAA tournament at Lucas Oil Stadium, was able to do those games. Of course, the Final Four, another story, what Butler has done for me. Watch the Kansas State game. Remember in 2010 when that got us to the Final Four?
Yes.
And son and I drove to Indianapolis and we're talking to Brad Stevens there in the front of Hinkle Fieldhouse. Coach, what a great game. I mean, can you imagine? I wish I had that conversation to roll back. I wish I somehow, but all I can remember is Matthew and I talking to Brad Stevens hours after his team had advanced to the Final Four.
Were times simpler then? Because it seemed like they were.
I mean, imagine. And then, anyway, and of course, you go to 2021. This was Fantasy Island, Dave.
Yes.
2021. 16 NCAA tournament games at Hinkle Fieldhouse. 16 of them.
Wow.
And they had
a lot of games.
We had limited audiences, so it was kind of like a movie set or a TV set.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, I was looking for Mr. Rourke to come out or Mrs. Rourke to come out in a white suit, and it was absolutely the most. Definitely, and I've always said this. I do not. The pandemic was horrible. It set in motion the circumstances that allowed us to host the NCAA tournament in Indianapolis in 2021. Would not want to do that ever again. Nothing further from, I do not, definitely. But it did create, for a public address announcer, just this unbelievable circumstance. I mean, I can't, I just can't, think. And you think about 16 NCAA tournament games, pretty much 25% of the tournament you did.
Yeah, right there in front of you, Dave. How about that?
Kind of, anyway, but again, what Butler has done for me, and then you go to this year and the TBT, and, I put that up to, those other events as well, because this is the current state of basketball, possibly with the Elam Ending, the future state of basketball. And, Butler is known for, I think, what we do. Butler invented the orange basketball, or started the orange basketball. Something like that.
Yeah.
So now here we go. And, you look at this tournament, Fox Sports 1, Big Ten Network. The games will be televised on those networks as far as the Butler TBT round. And, here we go. So we're going to a big event, but not only is it a big event, it's a big event for the future of basketball.
It seems like it's a big, and I truly believe that a version of this Elam Ending will eventually get to higher places, because it's now, the more that it gets seen, the more that it's used. I think, especially with, instant replay changed everything, right? Because we know too much, so we can't allow things. So it's almost, how do we offset, because there have been some injustices made when, maybe the right call was not made. But too many calls at the end of any game ruins some degree of the excitement of what you're watching.
Dave, I think the next step for the Elam Ending would be implementation in, let's say, the NIT. That I thought about that, I go, well, why don't
Dave,
they?
Makes sense.
That would be a nice little, that would be the next, for me, that would be the next step. I know
it's a good test. It's a good place to have a test.
The NBA All-Star game is pretty good, but that's a one-game thing. But if you did this in the NIT, I think you would get some publicity for the tournament, and it would, I think, it create a lot of excitement. And perhaps, though, I was thinking about, I think about these wheeler dealers on the TV side, Dave.
Yes, Dave.
How about
they're important.
How about a network perhaps going for another type of tournament in college basketball and implementing the Elam Ending in that as kind of a, you got all these different players and all that, and they could well say, hey, let's take 8 teams, go to Vegas, do Elam Ending.
Yeah. No, I would, as somebody who once worked on projects where Division II used to, I don't know if they still do this, but they would bring together the sports. So as an example, basketball, a wintertime sport, so is indoor track, so is wrestling. So basically they would have the large events in a concentrated area to give a kind of mini Olympic feel to the championships, to elevate their status and have, all of the participants were, I think at one point they would have these sports festivals. So hopefully D2 is an option to try the Elam Ending.
I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be more history at Hinkle Fieldhouse. And I know the other part of it is, even though some people may be new to the concept, Professor Elam has been working on this for quite some time. And I know he's probably like a rock star that's starting to gain widespread appeal. He's going to be happy for the new fans, but I think every step along the way, he's going to be grateful to those that march this along.
I also think the fact that there's flexibility with this, as he discussed, at different skill levels, different places, how they kind of set it up as far as what the score is or how many points they put the reach score to be or afterwards. So I think that's part of it too. That's good. It's not we're doing it this way and he wants everything to be this way. There's some flexibility in the structure of what he's designed. So it seems like something that is going to make more and more sense as sports evolve.
We will tell you how it works out at Hinkle Fieldhouse in an upcoming episode of the Crawfordsville Peach Cast. Dave, I know we've got some untoasted segments coming up, including next up, we've got the Terminal the Terminal with Tom Hanks. We've also got Gideon's Trumpet with Henry Fonda, and we'll try to come up with an Elam Ending for each podcast.
I'm looking forward to it, Dave. Good stuff.
All right, David, we will talk to you. Have fun there in New York.
All right, sir. Have a grand day.
That's
I
right.
Appreciate it.
Your work is not over. We are presented by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. We are also sponsored by Central Indiana Rubber. Power for you. 1, 2, 3. Hello.
Hello.
Todd. Thanks for listening to the Crawfordsville Peach Cast, sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. Tune in Thursday for a new episode on Apple or Spotify, and please like, subscribe, and download the Crawfordsville Peach Cast. This podcast was produced and edited by Up Their Media and is a presentation of Fork Broadcasting Digital. I'm Dave Peach, inviting you to join me next week.